This is the EXO Drone's Blackhawk 2 Pro, and it is the newest and best drone that you can get from EXO Drones. This looks a lot like the original Mavic Air, one of my favorite looking drones from DJI, so EXO, thumbs up on the stylistic cue. This is a foldable drone. It is not sub 250, but it is still pretty darn portable. We've got a 4K camera. You can see we've got obstacle avoidance in the front, the rear, and a couple of cameras on the bottom as well. So this is a fully featured, semi-professional grade tool. Yeah, this thing is legit. It's got a 10,000 meter range, that's over 5 miles, a 35-minute flight time, and a handful of pretty intelligent flight modes. This looks familiar. It's not just because it looks like the original Mavic Air. This is actually the Hubsan Ace Pro. Hubsan and EXO have kind of entered this partnership, and I think it's going to be really good for both companies. Hubsan for years has been making really good drones, but where they kind of struggle is in that user end. When it gets to the customer, they weren't really great with quality control. That's kind of where EXO has shined. They have a really good customer service, and they're going to be taking care of the customers. So if you're looking for an alternative drone that is backed by a US company, this is something you're going to want to check out. Let's dive into it a little bit deeper. All right, let's start by talking about the camera here. This camera, it is a 48 megapixel camera. Now it's not quite 48 megapixels, it's more of that quad bear technology where we have basically a 12 megapixel camera, and it kind of sections them off into 4 to give you that 48 megapixel image. We'll kind of dive into the pictures you can kind of compare for yourself, but it is still a pretty solid option. I did get the multi-battery package. You get this nice carrying case, and a spot for your extra batteries. The remote stores right underneath. This is a really nice package, nice carrying case. This is a 1/1.3 inch sensor. That's a little bit bigger than some of the drones in this price range. Now that should be a little bit better in lower light situations, so that's absolutely a bonus. The aperture is f1.85, which is nice and large, so that should get a little bit more light in there as well. Now we can do 4K 30 frames a second, or if we need to slow things down 60 frames a second, we can do that in all the way up to 2.7K. It does have HDR, it does have a night mode, and like I said before, you can take 48 megapixel stills. There are a bunch of really nice flight modes that I'll kind of walk through and show you, but we've got the follow me, we've got the orbit, we've got waypoints, we've got a line fly mode, and yes, we do have return to home. So we'll kind of walk through some of the features of this drone and how it works, then we'll take a look at some of the pictures and videos coming out of it. All right, so I've got the Blackhawk set up here, and I'm gonna run through some of the settings here on the phone with you. All right, so first let's take a look at the screen and what we have. In the lower left-hand corner, we've got a map. That'll give you kind of the orientation, showing you which direction it's facing, if it's level, things like that. Along the bottom, you can see speed, height, and distance. Along the top, we can see that it's ready to fly. N for normal mode. I can change the mode by tapping this button here on the remote control. F is for film speed, slow. N is normal, S is sport. Then we can see that it's not spinning. I have some icons along the top, 13 satellites, 88% battery. Then I have a settings wheel in the upper right hand corner. We'll just kind of look at some of those. I have waypoint settings here that I can kind of set some parameters there if I want to. I can calibrate the compass, gyro, IMU, return to home, altitude, things like that. Search for landing pad, that's kind of nice. So if I have a landing pad, it'll land on that landing pad. But I have to tell it to look for it. I have an auxiliary light on the bottom, and I can have that just kind of automatically turn on. I can have it always on, always off, or be blinking slowly. All right, so automatic brake with the APAS system, and do I want an FPV feed? You bet I do. Okay, then I have some gimbal settings here. Gimbal pitch, speed, and smoothness. I can calibrate the gimbal. And then I can do an advanced calibration here. Make sure I allow upward rotation. That means I can look up. And I have some PID parameter settings there. I'm not going to mess with any of that. All right, if I tap the map here, I have always show the aircraft's current location at the center of the map. I can change that, latitude, longitude, coordinates. Do I want them and do I want a standard satellite or hybrid map. Sample precision of waypoints drawing. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Alright, battery. You kind of check out some of the status on the battery here. That's fine. And then bottom, general purpose, automatic screen rotation, novice guide. Well, that's kind of nice. It'll walk you through some stuff if you're looking for that. Now I also have some settings here. You can see that we have full manual settings, right? If I wanted to, where I can change some of the shutter. I can either change the ISO or the shutter speed. All right, let's go back to auto there. I can change different photo modes, single shot, continuous time, panoramic. The panos you're gonna have to stitch yourself. I also have white balance. I can shoot in H-log if I want. 48 megapixel shooting. Night mode, let's turn night mode off. HDR, I actually prefer HDR to the 48 megapixel. Alright, so let's turn HDR on. Grid lines, I like them with the diagonals, and we can format the memory card. Oh, look, I can tap exposure, that's kind of nice. Alright, in the upper left hand corner, this X here, those are your flight modes. Alright, we have normal mode, that's how you normally would fly, manual flight controls and things like that. We've got a hyperlapse, you tap that and then you can do some hyperlapse video. Waypoints, we have waypoint mission planning and waypoint history. Orbit mode I gotta take off. Following mode, probably, no. There are two different follow me modes. We have follow me GPS. So this one, it will follow the phone wherever I go, and then an active track, I draw a box around a picture, then it'll follow. I've tested that. I've tested them both, and I'll show you how they work here in a little bit. Creative video is cool. Those are my different flight modes. Fly to the sky, that's a rocket. 360 shooting, comet, droning, auto drifting. Not sure what auto drifting is. Let's get it up in the air and try it out. And then line fly mode. I have to take off to do that. So let's take off. I'm going to hold this. I'm going to tap this button here. Click OK. Now, once I'm in the air, I can go ahead and turn on obstacle avoidance. That is that thing on the left-hand side. Force it open. It gives me that warning that it says I need to calibrate it, which is a big old process. And let's test it out. It's working. Doesn't want to fly into that bush, so success. Let's get it up there a little bit, and then I'll show you some of those modes. Creative video. Let's do a fly to the sky. Pick a target. I don't know, is that my target? And we say go. And we just go pretty much straight up. And this guy exited. So if you push a button, it will exit. Alright, let's talk about orbits. You can see there are two different orbits. So I can set the remote control as the point of interest, or I can set the aircraft location as the point of interest. That's really kind of nice. Let's take a look at the line to fly mode. Line to fly is pretty cool. Angle, distance, relative height, you kind of set all those parameters, and then you get to control the camera. Alright, now that it's in the air, we can take a look at some of the video settings. We again are in manual mode. We can work with the ISO or the shutter speed. Then we have different resolutions that we can shoot at. 4K 30, 2.7K 30 or 60, 1080 30 or 60, or 720 looks like 30 or 60. And we have again some of those different options. I'm going to turn HDR on. I do also have a zoom option here. Look out into the pond, see if we can see anything out there, and then I can go ahead and zoom in up to 6 times. It is of course a digital zoom. That is still kind of nice, and I can actually also activate the gimbal here as well. I don't know why you would. I would just use this gimbal wheel. If my horizon needed correction, I can go ahead and tilt it here. But I'd probably just do a recalibration instead of that. All right, so let's take a look at the two follow me modes. You're going to go ahead and tap the upper left-hand corner to get into it. And then you basically trace a box around your subject. I'm obviously using myself. You can either have it trace, which is basically follow, or orbit, which basically it'll go, in circles around who you're following. Now, it'll follow a subject at a moderate speed. I'm just kind of walking around and it's following me. I'm going to pick up the pace just a little bit here to a slow jog, and yeah, it's going to do just fine following people. But it's, going to lose it around obstacles and things like that, right? So I turn the obstacle avoidance on. I highly suggest you do that. And actually, it's going to help me right here as it sees the tree and it's going to stop. Now, this was a pretty difficult test for it. As I walked behind the tree, it lost me, and I'm like, well, is it going to see me if I come back? That's kind of the test. And once it loses you, it's not going to do a very good job of finding the subject again, right? I walked right through that X and didn't find me. Now, the other follow mode, the GPS follow, it doesn't matter if there are obstacles in the way. It is just going to follow the remote, basically. So, if you walk behind a tree, it's going to follow you. So again, make sure you have your obstacle avoidance on. That's what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of letting it follow me. You can kind of control it a little bit, and center the subject, because again, it's not following, a subject in the center of the screen. It's following me, right? It was. And then I just kind of have to manually adjust to make sure that the subject is in the center of the screen. And that's what I'm doing here. Now these kids are curious, so now I got to stop and talk to them and explain to them what this drone I'm flying is. All right, let's take a look at the camera, starting with some stills. This is a standard photo, standard settings. This is that same photo. All I did was turn the HDR on. And then here is that with the 48 megapixel photo. Now you can see the aspect ratio is different. Now here I zoomed in 4 times just to kind of pick up some detail. Standard photo. This is the HDR photo, zoomed in 4 times. And then here is that 48 megapixel photo, zoomed in 4 times. Do you really see more detail? All right, another set of photos. Here is a standard photo. I really kind of like the standard profile. Here is that HDR, kind of brightens things up a little bit. And then here we are looking at that 48 megapixel. Now remember, it's 8,000 by 4,000. That's what we're doing. Now here we're going to zoom in 4 times so you can kind of see standard photo. What does that look like? HDR photo zoomed in 4 times. And then finally, we're going to go with that 48 megapixel zoomed in 4 times. Do you see more detail? I'll let you make your own conclusions. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some of the video coming out of the EXO Blackhawk 2 Pro, and it's pretty solid. Now, all of the video here I shot at 4K 30 frames per second, so that's what we're looking at here. Now, this was kind of an overcast day while I'm here at the park. So, the sky isn't super bright. These shots here were shot with HDR on. I'm going to turn it off here in a little bit. You can kind of see what that looks like. I think with the HDR, the sky just doesn't tend to look as nice. You would think it would be kind of the opposite, but everything seems to be just a little bit darker anyway. But it's a solid camera. The gimbal does a nice job of keeping things steady, so I'm really kind of a fan of that. Hubsan has kind of always been pretty good at making decent cameras, right? They're not. I wouldn't say that it's quite on par with DJI, but you know what? It's not too far off. It's a pretty solid camera and definitely a pretty good option. Now here I turn the HDR off, so this is just standard 4K video coming out of the EXO Blackhawk 2. And I recorded at a bitrate of 100. Now you can go all the way up to 200, but that's just going to make your file size huge. You can record and log and do things like that. Now, another thing that's really nice is it records 2 files. You get this smaller shadow file. So if you don't have a super high processing computer, you can dump that file in. Chris made a whole video on how to do that. But we'll just look at a few more shots here on a sunnier, brighter day, and it really looks pretty good on this day with the nice bright background. So yeah, it's a solid camera. Another thing that's really nice is I actually forgot my SD card on one of these shots, one of these days, and yeah, there's onboard storage. So you get 64 gigs of onboard storage with this drone. So, you know, I wouldn't suggest not using a memory card, but if you happen to forget it or it fails, and I've had that happen on a photo shoot. Actually, Chris and I were shooting a fire truck at a business. They were pulling up and memory card went bad. So it's nice to have, you know, at least another backup option in case you don't have an extra micro SD card. But yeah, I do like this drone. It takes good pictures, good videos, and I'll let you kind of decide what you think about it. So at the end of the day, would I recommend this drone? Well, yes, I do think that it's a little high priced at $800. That kind of slots in right around where the Mavic Air 2 is. Not the 2S, but the 2. And I really, really like that drone. I think that the user experience, or my experience with the Air 2, has just been super flawless. And I probably recommend that versus this. But this does have some things that doesn't, right? Plus, a lot of people are like, I don't trust DJI. It's on that exempt list. Maybe we should go with this EXO Drones company. It is US backed. Now, they do build these things, I believe, in Hong Kong. So it's not like you're getting this built in America. But, you know, it is an American-based company. They have a really good reputation for customer service. So maybe you want to buy your drone from a US-based company. EXO Drones is one of the few options you have out there, especially if you want something like this with a really solid camera on a 3-axis gimbal. I really am rooting for the EXO Hubsan partnership to work. I've said it before, I think Hubsan makes good hardware. They kind of struggle with the software, the customer service, the quality control, and I think that's where EXO can kind of step in and maybe take Hubsan to that next level. We'll see, right? I do think, again, a little overpriced, but if you know anything about EXO drones, they market the heck out of these things, so they have to recoup that budget somewhere, and I think that's in the price of the drone. But, you know, if they're going to provide you customer service, there's a price for that as well. So, something to consider. Hey, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you check us out on halfchrome.com. Hey, thanks for watching, good luck, and happy flying.